And Kelly, where does content creation fit in? Like blog posts, social media, email lists. Like there's a lot that people could do. I've heard a lot of debate around email lists, for example, like that just distracts people from making the decision to call you when you have this pop-up that says join my newsletter, and then people are like, forget this. Like how do you see the balance of creating content, ranking for Google, building SEO, finding your ideal client? Like how do you conceptualize all of that?
So I think when you're first starting, you want to focus on your hub, which is the website. And for SEO purposes, I still recommend blogging. I still see it as paying off well, a minimum of twice a month. But in the beginning, if you can like put out a nice, like good, solid 8, it's nice. And then after that, at minimum twice a month, there comes a point where you won't need to do it as much. I have seen that. Like, it also depends on your area and what your competition in terms of ranking is like. If you're in Los Angeles, good luck. You need to rank very specifically for a niche and a zip code, versus if you're in Podunkville, Iowa, no offense to Iowans or whatever, but you don't have to work so hard to rank for just counseling overall, versus, an anxiety CBT therapist wants to be very specific. In terms of social media, I don't believe it's a have to. Again, it comes down to, is that where your ideal client hangs out? And is that where you like to be? But anytime you add other accounts in other places, it also helps your SEO and gets people to your website. Ultimately, that website is the hub and the place that converts. I feel like email list stuff, that comes way later. I feel like that's for when you have other things that you offer. I have clients that use it as more of like, instead of a wait list, it's like, hey, we'll provide support in this way through our newsletter. It's a commitment. Don't do it if you're not going to commit to it. And it can feel like a burden when you're first starting because there's so many things to do. I feel like managing a newsletter list and being consistent with that, as well as writing your blogs and considering social media content, can be overkill for someone in the beginning. I think you can have it down the road, but it's not the priority in the beginning. Social media, like I said, it just kind of comes down to, I think you should have like your Google directory listing. You should have your Yelp listing, if anything, for reputation management, because when your profiles, you can state how you handle reviews if they're negative. Like, I don't respond to reviews on here because I protect my clients' confidentiality. I can't confirm or deny that any of these reviews are people that have seen me. That way you're at least being, and then you get notified, because people could be reviewing you on Yelp and you don't even know if you don't have an account. So I think having those accounts is good, and a directory listing, it depends again on your area and the competition.
Okay, so I am scheduling to open my practice in August or August-September timeframe. Cool. So I'm in the process of networking with a bunch of other private practice owners and some other community partners in the Cincinnati area. Do you have any recommendations on how to sort of announce that I've opened, knowing that I'm building some of this network over the next few months?
Yeah, I think.
Great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. I think as you're networking, are you collecting emails of people and their contact information? Because I think sending out an email, letting them know that you are open and this is who you see and that you're available to consult. I think I like to categorize, and not everybody, this may not be for everybody, but how I network with a therapist is going to be different than how I network with a yoga instructor. So I may like to send a different kind of letter for therapists and psychiatrists than I do for a general practitioner, than I do for just a community referral friend kind of thing. So, because it could be something like, for doctors, I like to say, like, I'm available for consult on these issues. If ever you have a patient that's struggling, I'm happy to be a support to you. To talk about like maybe what they need. And I've had physicians call and be like, okay, I've given them these meds and this is what's happening. And so I think letters or an email is a great way to do it. And then follow up. A few months later, I like to you can put in different systems. Some people use a calendar. Like, I emailed this person and I put in my calendar, like 3 months later, sent a check-in, to see like, hey, how's it going? I've been seeing more of these clients, wanted to hear how you're doing as well. So And then, of course, any social media you have, make announcements there as well, and sending out to your friends and family. Don't be ashamed. Like, spread the word. Toot your horn. Does that help?
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
One thing I'd add to that is to do an open house, but not an open house where you awkwardly stand there and it's super boring. Actually make it fun. So what we did when we moved into our new office is we brought in this musician. Her name's Miriam Pico. She plays this awesome kind of Latin style music. So we had her playing acoustic music in my office. And so then we had Pinot wines. So we had Pico and Pinot was our kind of theme. And my thought was, if only my friends show up, I got to write off a party for my friends. And we had like 50 people here. You would have thought it was like a party at our house rather than an open house. And so like people in the building walked in and were like, whoa, I want to stick around, and not just awkwardly think like, oh, how long do I have to stay? So that's how I've approached, you know, whether it was an open house or a book launch, to just make it fun for yourself. And you know, then you can write off a party.
We love writing off parties, don't we, Joe?
We do. We sure do.
No, that's a great idea. I never did that for my practice, but I have a lot of clients to do it and love it. And again, the same kind of mentality of what makes it successful is like, even if it's just my friends, at least I'm getting support there and we're having a great time. And yeah.
So you do recommend getting on a Yelp listing? That's something that kind of scares me.
Sure.
Again, I know you said something about putting the right filters or the right.
Well, someone can review you on Yelp whether or not you have an account.
Oh.
And yeah, like you can go anywhere and check in that business and end up creating a listing. And my belief is I would rather have some sort of control over that listing, at least for reputation management. So at least I know what's happening, that sort of thing. There are some things that we've taught in our boot camp in terms of having colleagues write for Yelp. You have to, they keep changing the formula. So when someone writes a review for Yelp, it gets reviewed by Yelp and they determine if it's a legitimate review or not. So sometimes when you have reviews from colleagues, they'll like put it in the non-legitimate status. But there are some ways to have colleagues honestly review you as a colleague, like, hey, I've worked with her in supervision. This is what we've talked about. This is her expertise. I highly recommend her. Those kinds of things. So you can still get reviews from colleagues if ever. And so what's one of the things that we talk about if someone writes a terrible review, how to mitigate that. So in boot camp, we teach like you can have other people write positive reviews, making sure that you're very clear about how you handle negative reviews on your profile can also help. So I totally get it's scary, but that potential exists whether or not you create the profile.
So you're saying to go ahead and create the profile so you have the ability to control it.
Yeah, so you can have people write. So you can have a statement for how you handle that stuff. Because in other business, Yelp loves for you to respond to any of your reviews. You can't. So if you have a statement explaining like, I wish I could respond to all these reviews, I'm not able to do so. You know, so I totally get that. And yet it's going to happen.
I didn't understand the power of Yelp until one of my consulting clients, he was out in California and had a very robust Yelp business there. And then when he moved, he just changed his address and all of the reviews followed him to Chicago. And right away, he was ranking really high in the Chicago Yelp. He said that a good 80% of his referrals come from Yelp then. So
I have clients that get all of their referrals from it. Not paid. No, we don't pay for Yelp. No paying for Yelp. Yeah.
But even if you're moving or adding extra locations, like it can be really helpful, especially in a new community.
That's a great point.
So I'm working on doing an event to kind of market myself.
Cool.
Do you have any recommendations for like, I'm just like, I know kind of what I want to present on and I know my target audience and everything. Like, do you know how long should it be if I do an event? Do you have any ideas for like venues that you know about that are like, you know, kind of all around? And then also like, should I do that event and then like maybe do it online too?
Well, okay, those are very good questions. Can I ask a few more clarifying ones? Who's the event for?
Okay. The event will be, so the event will be for kind of my niche audience. Just, it will be dads.
Okay.
And so it will be newer dads, dads with one kid or two kids, or
Okay.
that are having trouble adjusting. And it will just be, I don't even know, like I need to come out with an outline for it. And
Okay.
I don't know how
All
long
right.
it should be or.
Good. Okay. Okay. So for new dads, so what I like to do is
You can do it, Kelly. I believe in you.
Clearly, I've had a rough week. Okay. All right. So what I like to do is start with the transformation. I don't care about how long or whatever. Whoever attends this thing, what do you want them to walk away with?
Mhm.
For you to feel good about investing the time, because honestly, Joe and I can tell you, events take time. So you want, whether it's you talk for 2 hours or you talk for 1 hour, you're still going to take the same amount of time, So what's the transformation you want for them to have?
Mhm.
Okay. And then from there, think about what are the things that I can teach them that can provide that transformation. Now, don't stand up there with PowerPoint. We want it to be interactive. We want it to be fun. So then thinking about activities and stuff like that. And so usually an event, especially your first time out, you're going to want them to walk away with one or two things. You're not going to have them have this whole transformation, but you want them to walk away with enough to say, like, that was worth my evening, that was worth that day or whatever. That sort of thing. So maybe the transformation you want to provide, you need a lot of time for. Maybe you need 3 hours. You need some activities and talking and the break and those kinds of things. So then that kind of informs the time, and then that will inform the venue. For me, starting an event, I like to go cheap on terms of, like, if I've never done it before, if I have space, I'm going to use the space I already paid for. You know what I mean? It's a lot less to coordinate with a restaurant and those kinds of things. However, maybe you have a budget for it. That will then inform spaces you could do. I've seen so many cool different spaces. I don't know where you're located. Where are you?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay, I have no clue. But maybe, sometimes there's restaurants that have back rooms, and sometimes there's like training facilities. Like you could do something with these dads where they get a workout, and then, or maybe it's a movie theater or whatever.
Would you recommend staying away from a bar? I know a bar that rents out their basement for free and then they cater.
If I've done events in bars and I just have a no drink rule. Like, this is a sober event, that kind of thing. But
or they buy their own, or I think one thing is to think of who already has an audience, so that you don't have to start from scratch. And so whether it's a church or a bar or a workout facility that you can partner with. So if it is a dads and drinks thing, of course, you're going to want to think through that, and if it matches your brand and the liability. Is it meant to be a lead into your therapy practice, or is it meant to be a standalone product?
So you work back from the transformation that you provide into what do you need to provide that transformation, then that informs the amount of time, then it informs kind of like what it's going to cost, and then go from there. And then you leverage what you already know. Are there people in the community that have spaces, or like what Joe is saying, that already has an audience? You utilize that to kind of partner.
So thank you for all the good information. One of the questions that I had is, I'm still in the process of trying to build clients, and just like last week or a week before last, I really, really dialed down my niche, and I have it, and I know what the focus is, which makes me feel a whole lot better, because now I'm working on rewriting my website and making the changes that I need to do in order, so when people go there, I'm speaking to those pain points or what they would write in their journal, everything that you and Joe already mentioned. One of the things that I wanted to do, and I did before, was starting a group. So I went wrong on my first group because I did not require like payment for the first initial 2 or 3 sessions, which I should have done, but I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
So now I know.
Okay.
So now going back with that, I'm going to put another, I did like a Canva ad, and so I'm going to post that back. Do you feel that when you're really trying to build that audience, that it's also important to maybe try doing like a vlog, so a short video to kind of talk about the importance of the group or the practice, or, maybe like doing a video in order to talk about a blog I might have written? Because I know Joe talks about it, and I do think it's really important, but probably it's my own crap that's in the way of me not just like clicking on live and start talking.
Okay. So who's your niche, by the way?
So with families, because I like families and couples, I do blend. So I'm doing just blended families, focusing on the blended family area. Couples, dealing with any form of infidelity, and I do adolescents. So adolescents that are dealing with depression. So like, just kind of trying to bring it down. And African American, I'm really dialing in on the minority. Yeah.
Yes, good. Yes. So with video, I don't recommend video for everyone. People who, if I recommend video if it's easier for you to talk and just to get started. For some people, it's easier to write. So I would say write, if that's what, I just want it to be the easiest. Now you've done whatever is easiest. You've done the writing. You need to do what Joe's saying and just do the live. Think about, I just think about your personality and how you talk and your mannerisms, and people are going to get a really good sense of you and being with you in the room. And that's going to be the most converting, is you sharing you. And, websites convert higher when there's video on them. That's statistically known. And don't ask me the statistic. I don't remember the exact number, but it is higher. So if you can do more video, I think it would be great. I think too, personally, I think group work, for me, when I've done groups, it's been easier to fill once my individual is filled. It's just been how it's been for me, because basically when you add group work, you're ending up marketing 2 products, and they're for 2 different kinds of people. And so then you find you're pulled in your marketing. So for me, I'd rather fill my one-on-one first, and then once that's flowing, then I add the next product. Or if you're like, no, I'm going to do a ton of groups, that's what I do, then fill groups. And then once you've gotten the flow and you figure out what works, just like you said, you're working those kinks out with the payment and stuff, then you can add the next thing. So I think also just something to consider is that you might be feeling that tension of, I'm marketing 2 things to 2 different people with 2 different types of transformation, because group work is different.
And if you've used group work maybe as a step down from the intensive therapy, I've found that in working with clients, and Kelly, I don't know if this is true of you, they tend to say that if you're starting a new group, if half that group, whatever your total number is, can be from current clients, so that whether or not you get any new clients, at least you have enough to run it. So you have 4 people in the group, then it takes kind of that pressure off versus starting totally from scratch.
That's my experience, is the group stuff comes a little later as you've gotten the flow of getting this individual stuff down.